Hey everybody, boy, we having a good time on the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you as we talk about the Fonnie Willis decision and so many issues that are coming out of it. Terry O'Neill, former national president of the National Organization of Women and civil rights lawyer. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, the president emeritus of Bennett College for Women, uh, outgoing dean of ethnic studies at Cal State Los Angeles, MIT, PhD. Of course, the president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association of Illinois, brilliant attorney, my soror, attorney Anastasia. Not that we don't love everybody else, not that Dr. Malveau's not a soror too. Ooh, to both of you.
Ooh.
Ooh, ooh. And of course, Daryl Jones, attorney Daryl Jones, one of the leading voting rights advocates in America today. Indeed, brilliant lawyer, and someone who is MIA right now because he's surrounded by all these women. And he said, "I am not going to say anything."
So Daryl's gonna say something. Count on it.
Oh yeah, I see that head looking down. He's like, okay. But we've been talking about the Fonnie Willis decision, and it's interesting where the conversation has gone as we talk about it, because there's so many layers to it. You've got gender, you've got race, you've got racism, you've got how women are supposed to behave. Because white, yellow, brown, black, or red, women are supposed to be nice and lovely. And black women are really just supposed to fade into the woodwork, even though we're supposed to be angry and you get upset with us when we push back. But you expect me to push back. It's all of that. And so it was interesting that Judge McAfee attacked her manner. Said, I didn't like, you weren't a lady about this. So I didn't like the way you did this because, I've noticed in my interactions with some men, but particularly white men, if I, because I am really pleasant, I think.
Well, you're mostly pleasant.
No. I am a very pleasant person, but don't play with me.
Well, no. You see, there's such a contrast because I just have a rep for being an itch. But it's like, don't poke the bear because the bear will bite.
But see, it takes a long. I'm slow to anger, and I believe I don't. And I keep control of that because I know that whom the gods will destroy, they first make mad. So I'm like, okay, I'm all right with this, but don't play with me. Don't play with me, and I'm going to stand up for myself. And the moment women stand up for themselves, you become a problem. And so I was explaining to a friend of mine who's a man. I said, I understand Fonnie Willis, particularly when I saw her daddy. I said, I really understand her because her interaction with him reminded me of my interaction with my father. Have your own money, baby. I never want you to be beholden to a man or his money. Not that I don't want you to have one, but I remember marriage is not your achievement. It is something you do. Your life will be full whether you marry.
Man is not a plan. He's a companion.
He's a companion, and I don't want you to do that, baby. I want you to, if you want a doctor, be one. That's all.
There you go.
Just you don't have to marry a lawyer. You're going to be one. You can be a doctor, a lawyer. You can do whatever you want. Do that, and always be able to put him out or walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to be with someone to whom you can be committed and ride the vicissitudes of life out with him, because life is going to hit you. But if things get just to be, if it's too much, then I always want you to have that option. But that means you've got to be educated, emotionally independent. There's just so many pieces. And when I saw her, that's what I saw. And I saw the attack upon her as an attempt to break her.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, Dr. Malveaux? I saw that, and that kept coming infuriated me.
And that Ashley Merchant, I mean, if anybody needs to be admonished for their behavior, it should have been she, the little blonde hair slinging white girl who
you don't have to do all that with her. She was just an Ashley Merchant. Come on now.
Well, Santita.
No,
I'm intense and I'm extreme.
I know you are with your blonde self, and
I ain't blonde.
Wait a minute. Walterine White, who's 132nd black, but I ain't gonna get mad at her. I'm going back to the NAACP. I'm the turn of the last
Like
century.
I don't, I just, I have various and sundry triggers in life, and one of them is white women who use their hair as punctuation.
I got you.
When they start slinging that hair, and it's like, can you just put that spit in a bun?
I
Uh,
mean, come on,
you
sis.
know,
That is so
I mean, what? Actually, I'll tell you, one of my girls is a ramp supervisor at an airline. So they load the luggage, and
uh-huh.
she has a subordinate who she don't like her because she doesn't like because she's white and blonde. And I said, well, that's not right. Tell me why you really don't like her. She said the girl uses her hair punctuation. But there was a woman in Atlanta who actually got hit by the plane because her hair was in the way. So she's constantly telling this girl to put her hair in a ponytail, and the girl is constantly telling her she doesn't want to do it. And then when a supervisor from the FAA came, a white man, he said, "You got to do something about that hair because you can be beheaded if the
Yeah,
wind hits you the wrong way." And
yeah.
I told her, I said, "Well, see, I said I knew we had something in common. I just met the sister. I said because I don't like all that hair slinging either." She said, "But it's not that." She said, "It's dangerous. It's literally dangerous."
But it's a power play, right? And I think that whenever I see people abuse the power that they have or what they perceive, it's irritating. But hold on, everybody. I've got the former president of the National Organization of Women with us, uh, who's having to explain. She's having to white explain women for us. That's all right, because
And
we,
she's doing a
but
great job
you
at it
know
because
what? No, but we understand it all because this is a 400+ year project. We old at this, and what we're trying to do is move toward wellness. That's because everybody's a little nuts. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, that was not your segue. President
I was so
Emeritus.
don't be calling me nuts in public. You can call me nuts in don't be calling me nuts.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
but you know what? I own it. I am 70 years old. I've been in therapy since I was about 6 years old. One time, this man told my mama, she's very irritable. She must be in the menopause. And mommy said, well, she was in the menopause since she was 11. So,
Yes. I mean, wait a minute. And that is Dr. Julianne Malveaux. And Anastasia Sinat, who is right on your heels, president of Asian American Lawyers Association. Brilliant. And we're all Deltas. And maybe that's part of it.
ooh, ooh,
Ooh, ooh.
ooh.
And of course, and shout outs to all of our sisters of the Divine Nine and our brothers in the Divine Nine, not excluding anybody. And of course, Daryl Jones, who is what? An alpha.
Ugh.
I'm not
He's a,
mad at him.
Isn't that the
Uh,
same thing that Nathan Wade guy is? Oh
uh,
my goodness.
that's
no,
right.
he's.
That's
I
right.
thought he was the Kappa. I
I
don't
thought he
know.
was a Kappa. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
Nathan's a brother. He's an alpha.
He's
Okay.
an alpha. See how y'all don't know stuff? I be knowing stuff.
06 ain't mad at
I
you.
don't pay attention that much to it. I actually been engaged to like 6 or 7 captains. I kicked them all to the curb. I tell them,
Oh,
y'all did not know how to seal the deal. Uh,
oh gosh. Julian, be quiet. Let me bring on a CK Hoffman just got off this plane and let her explain what she said. I mean, yeah, that's why you're just nutty, but we love you. We love you. CK Hoffler, chair of the board of Rainbow Push, and let me also say, she and Judge Mathis head up Push Excel. They are chairs of Push for Excellence. Let me just say that because that's one of the things that
that's one of
Dr.
my
Malcolm
favorite things
does
to
as
do.
well.
Yes. That's one
And
of my favorite things to do.
but also the former president of the National Bar Association, who practices out of Atlanta, former law partner to the great Willie Gary, and legal analyst on Court TV. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, what did we see on Friday with Judge McAfee, with Fonnie Willis? How will this impact her going forward, do you think? Oh, wait, let me see. Let me see. Let's make sure. Are you unmuted?
Am I
Okay,
now? Okay.
there we go.
I was, chuckling a little bit when Dr. Malveaux was speaking, so I had to make
Mute yourself.
I was, so anyway, I will say this to everyone. Friday was a major victory. Hear me, major victory for District Attorney Fonnie Willis. I've been a trial lawyer for many, many years, and sometimes you get orders that you just don't like. A judge says, you are, well, I haven't had one that said I was, wholly unprofessional, all that kind of stuff. But there are buzzwords for being an aggressive woman. And I'm certainly an aggressive trial lawyer. Don't care about any of that. It doesn't matter. I just need to get to a jury. So you get your hand smacked. You are publicly humiliated, having to go through that ridiculous hearing. But at the end of the day, she was not removed from the case. And that is a major victory. All of the other part of the 17-page order, some which basically, accused her of everything but being, was not complimentary to her style.
Mm-hmm.
That's only going to be important for a jury. And trust me, when you ask the question, what does it mean for her? What does it mean for the former president of the United States? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're picking a jury, his lawyers are the ones that are going to have to desensitize the jury to all of the things that he's been found liable. At this point, he doesn't have a criminal conviction, but held liable for. So this situation between Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade, well, bad judgment, not best practices, but there was nothing I maintain illegal about what they did. Just not a good thing to do. And period, end of discussion. But I think the judge got it right in his final decision, which was to allow her to continue on, provided that Nathan Wade go.
But wait a minute. Why remove Nathan Wade? Why was that the option? I mean, why was it your whole office goes or he goes? What was that?
Well, I think because the judge found, quite frankly, some credibility issues with both of their testimony. And the judge had problems with that. But no matter what the judge felt about their credibility in their testimony, that and the bad choices, bad judgment, bad decisions that they made, it didn't rise to a level under Georgia law of a conflict of interest that adversely impacted the defendants. That's the bottom line. So while the judge said, Fonnie he thought she was unprofessional in the way she delivered, well, maybe a lot of Black women the judge may have found would be unprofessional. And by the way, he might find that some of the jurors are unprofessional. That's just a question. And believe me, I have ultimate respect for every judge in a courtroom because she or he governs and rules the courtroom as he or she deems it appropriate and sees fit. So the judge ruled. The reason why it was either Fonnie or Nathan, because there was enough mess, if you will, that's my word, in the record, enough evidence in the record, enough pollution and a cloud, if you will, on some of the record, having to do with their personal relationship, that he just probably felt Nathan Wade was derelict in his duties and his obligations and probably should have stepped aside long ago. But Fonnie Willis, the lead prosecutor, should not. And the reason why that's a major victory for her is because if the judge could have found the complete opposite, and the defendants are very upset about that, as well they should be. But they should have brought this nonsense from the beginning. But it's a major victory for her because she can keep on with the case. There was no guarantee that she personally was going to try the case anyway. That's not how it works in a prosecutor's office. But nonetheless, she and her team will remain, because if they had disqualified her, it would have been the entire Fulton County District Attorney's office. And another county, way more conservative, and other lawyers who could have been MAGA lawyers could have stepped in and taken over the case, dismissed the case, delayed and done whatever, because they simply didn't believe, for whatever reasons, that the cases should have been brought. And we have to remember, there are a number of defendants that have already pled. They have a deal. They're presumably going to turn evidence against the head of this RICO, if we believe what the district attorney's position is. The head of this RICO, this criminal enterprise, is former President Donald Trump. Some of those defendants that have already pled, presumably, are going to turn evidence against him. So this case will continue on, and I best believe it's going to continue on aggressively without Nathan Wade. And I think the judge felt he had to do something, but he wasn't going to, in my impression, get rid of Fonnie Willis. I said this from the beginning. He's going to slap her on the hand, call her all kind of stuff, code words for aggressive bitter Black woman, whatever. And that's his right to do so. But he is not going to get rid of her because there was no legal justification for that. There was bad judgment, funkiness, shakiness, Jamaica funk, whatever you want to call it. but there was not a legal justification to remove her from the case. So the case goes forward with her. Now, the other side may try to do something, they're going to try to find another reason, more and more and more, but they would have done that anyway. When your life and liberty is at stake and you have a lot of money, you will pay as many people as you need to pay to comb through every bit of paper to dig into everyone's background. And they took their best shot at Fonnie Willis, and she came out fighting. People may not have liked it. Oh, well, she's still on the case. Major victory for her, Santita.
So
You should have gone anyway, probably earlier, because we could have avoided a lot of this discomfort if he had just stepped aside. But I still maintain it was her right to bring on who she felt she should bring on for this case.
if he had stepped aside, when?
He should have stepped aside earlier. Once I think it would have been, but I understand you have to build your case and build your defense, and that takes time. It would have been a good thing, a good practice, I believe, if once the allegations had surfaced, that they immediately came out and said, yes, we did have a relationship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think also this was kind of predictable. It's predictable that these are going to be the kinds of issues that are raised. So they broke up some time ago. So perhaps, if it's predictable and if it's kind of funky, then, and particularly when some of these allegations are flying back and forth, I think that maybe just as he did this time, not that he's admitting to doing anything wrong, because see, I don't really think that this was a major issue personally. I think the appearance of impropriety, certainly, not best judgment, certainly, but nothing illegal, and nothing that rose to the rise of a conflict, right? That rose to the level of a conflict of interest. Because if that's what it takes, a whole bunch of prosecutors and judges will be kicked out of cases immediately. So there's a hypocrisy everywhere. But as a Black woman prosecutor, and we know many Black women prosecutors are being targeted throughout the country, and as someone who has U.S. Marshals with her because of the death threats, who has sustained as much criticism and applause by some that District Attorney Fonnie Willis has had, some of this is anticipated, but she's human too. And the bottom line is she did nothing illegal. So, I think Nathan Wade could have stepped aside sooner. And so they would have said, well, he's culpable, whatever. It didn't matter because they said that anyway. And his testimony was whatever it was. But I'm really focused on Fonnie Willis, the district attorney, because Nathan Wade, at the end of the day, is not a government employee. He's he's independent counsel. And so that's very different. He's in the private sector. Will that impact him going forward? Possibly. But, this litigation is so high stakes that that is what it is, the high stakes nature of this litigation. Will it impact Fonnie Willis? Well, there's some people who are going to be very critical of her, but those people were very critical of her from the get-go. They never embraced Fonnie Willis. So from my standpoint, she really had nothing to lose but to do exactly what she did, which is defend herself and that is Fonnie. What you saw is Fonnie. That's how she is. She wasn't just upset and that's what you saw. That is the type of trial lawyer that she is. She's a bad mamma jamma. She's bad to the core. She is not going to be bullied. She will take on anyone if she feels she has the evidence. And that is why the people in Fulton County elected her. Period. End of discussion. So all this other stuff of this and that, and that to the this, let some Fulton County folks be on that jury. Remember, at the core, those two women and so many other people who were working the polls, who were terrorized, and so many others that didn't step forward. Why? Because they didn't want to have to leave the jurisdiction. They didn't want to have U.S. Marshals. They didn't want to have hate mail. They didn't want their families in danger. This is really very, very significant. We have to not lose sight of that and recognize this as for what it is. Yeah, it was important. Yeah, it was unfortunate. Yeah, it was funky, but it was a sideshow. The real issue is that we have a former president who has been brought up on very serious criminal RICO charges, criminal enterprise, for trying to allegedly steal the elections in the state of Georgia. And in the process, and his team or his people, whomever, terrorized citizens in Fulton County. And she's a district attorney. And that's it. That's the case. And that's what's going to be prosecuted. All this other stuff and any other smoke screens that they come up with, because there are some others that they're going to try and dig up. It's just that they're smoke screens. I always say, just let a jury of your peers make a determination. I understand why they'd be afraid, because if convicted, they're going to jail. There is no presidential pardon. There is no gubernatorial pardon. There is a going to jail. So there's a lot at stake. And when you have those types of you're facing that, of course you're going to do everything you can to defend yourself, because your life and liberty are at stake, whether you are the former president of the United States or not.
Attorney O'Neill, that really resonated with you.
I mean, yeah, it does, and especially CK, what you were saying, he is the head of a criminal enterprise, and Fani Willis has made her reputation as a district attorney going after criminal enterprises. RICO, she knows RICO back and forward. She knows how to bring a RICO case and win a RICO case. So yeah, and you know, we were talking earlier about the white defense lawyer who attacked Fani, who was interrogating Fani Willis. You know, that.
And she did not do a good job, by the way. She did not do a good job. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you know what she did is she simmered in her caucasity.
Yes,
that's literally what she did.
And she was playing to white people. That
exactly.
I think what she was really doing was playing to a white audience, which is a terrible thing, because what's happening, because now Trump is out there claiming that he wants a bloodbath if he loses the 2024 election. Absolutely. What do you think he's going to call for if he loses this case? Right. So, and here she is, she's playing to white people. But I mean, I'm a white person. I'm watching this. I'm watching Fani Willis go after her and say, excuse me, you don't understand what the roles are here. I'm prosecuting your client. You are not prosecuting me. That's not, I mean, she just went after this white lawyer, and I was going, oh, wow. Yes. And so you're right, CK, I agree. She did not do a good job, because when Fani Willis comes back at her, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know criminal law, but this prosecutor is really making a lot of sense. And yeah.
I would agree. I would agree. You know, I didn't feel that she was very effective, but she wasn't. I don't know that they thought they would actually win this fight. What they wanted to do was to, in the court of public opinion, put a cloud over it, and they succeeded at that. I don't think you couldn't possibly have thought that Fani Willis was going to get disqualified for having an affair with someone who was on the team. Whether they paid cash, didn't pay cash, did the blah blah blah, all that's not even relevant to anything, because if that's the standard, a whole bunch of people are going to be disqualified, and we probably would have no district attorneys or anyone in the prosecutor's offices, because that's not what you judge people by in terms of whether they should bring a case. And certainly it was not. I am not defending the judgment and the decisions that District Attorney Fani Willis did. Why? Because she defended herself. I'm not saying it was right. Why? Because that's up to her to do. I'm saying I don't think it was the best practice. I don't think it was good judgment. I think there is an appearance. There's a little funk around that. But she's not been disqualified, because the law doesn't address funkiness, appearance of impropriety. There are ethics rules that might address that. You can go to the bar that might address, but the law is not focused on that, because if so, then there are people who prosecute cases, who bring cases, who try cases, who would be buried, who could never do their job, because people are not perfect. So I think that Ashley was not very effective as a trial lawyer. I felt that the cross-examinations weren't effective. I was dying to cross-examine, just me, myself, and I, to cross-examine Fani Willis's former friend. I said, oh, just please, Fani, I know we're not close. You don't know me well, but just call me and ask me to cross-examine. Anyway, I digress.
That heifer.
I just wanted 5 minutes with her.
Come on, Julie.
5 minutes. That's all.
Woman.
That sister was just so out of order, out of line, out of control, and you could see it in her demeanor.
Right.
Out of order, out of line, out of control. And there were two disgruntled former friends who really, I mean, I guess, payback is a what. But they were unhappy with their relationships, and rather than manage it like grown people, they did what I call run tell that. So they're going to run tell that even if they had nothing to tell.
Dr.
Mhm.
Balvo, you know, when you have, and I have a certainly strong personality. I know when to hold it, when to fold it, and everything. But you know, certainly those of us on this call, including Daryl Jones, you know, when you do what you do and do it with passion, you're not going to be beloved by everyone. It's just not reality. When you take a position that everyone doesn't like, you're just not going to be beloved. And so you're not going to be beloved always by your colleagues, whether, and this is just across the board, when you're rising through the ranks, you come to the top. She's the top dog in Fulton County. And forgive that expression, in terms of legal authority. That's Fonnie Willis. She beat out everybody. She beat out one of the most popular district attorneys, by the way, who I supported, Santita, and your dad supported. That was Paul Howard. She prevailed and unseated him. He had been the district attorney for decades. So I say that I want to give her credit for that, because that's not easy. And she has built her reputation, just as Terry O'Neill said, prosecuting RICO cases. Do you think anyone was feeling good about Fonnie Willis when she was prosecuting Atlanta's teachers? Nobody was feeling good about Fonnie Willis. Do you feel that people are feeling, oh, I'm in love with Fonnie Willis when she's prosecuting the very popular rappers? They may be gangsters, allegedly, in Atlanta. People aren't loving Fonnie Willis and her team for doing that. You know, she's taken on some very, 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 very tough cases. She knows RICO. She's impacted RICO. She has actually had an impact on how RICO is tried in the state of Georgia. So they don't need to mess with her on that, as evidenced by the amount of effort they put into taking her out. They failed.
Right.
Maybe victory. But I will say this to, you know, my sister district attorney, Fonnie Willis, that she was very careful before. She's got to be increasingly careful now. I'm pretty sure they're having to double her security. She already had U.S. Marshals. She probably has more death threats than the president of the United States, or certainly Vice President Kamala Harris. And that's unfortunate. And with this latest statement by the former president that, you know, he's going to call for basically war, the way I read it, if he doesn't win the election, should be very disconcerting for every single American, and by the way, anyone in the world. Because if we here in the United States are confronting or facing that level of unrest, civil unrest, which he's already broadcasting, you know.
But you know what, with CK, we are. What people have to understand, I heard Donald Brazil say this on, I think it was George Stephanopoulos' show. What people have to understand is that this is not a campaign, it's a movement.
Yes.
And whenever you have a figurehead of a movement, the emotions are very high. And people are willing to tear the country up. I remember when Reverend was running for president, because his campaigns were really movements. Several well-placed people said in major publications, because the fear was that he was going to be killed. No one expected him to survive either run, because Black men at his level doing what he was doing didn't make it past 39. He'd already gone past that. So they were like, he's on the clock. They said, we don't know where the passions will turn if something happens to him. So certain people said things to try and cool things down. Jerry Falwell called Reverend. He said, I want you to come to Lynchburg and see me. Reverend E.V. Hill took him there. And he said, you know, who was one of the biggest Black evangelists of the last century. He said, you know, I don't agree with your politics, Jesse. And they'd known each other as preachers and liked each other personally. They just didn't agree politically. And I've heard some things that have been very disturbing to me. But what I want you to know is, from my pulpit, you'll never hear anything that will be threatening to you. And if I hear of anything, I will let you know. Because tensions are that high around these campaigns. And I think people have to understand that and be sensitive to that. Even however because I know there were people who hated Reverend with a passion. So I get that too.
Right.
I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same. It is the same thing, because that's how people feel.
Right.
And that's where we all have to be very careful. That's why I try to temper the language, because this microphone, for all of us, whether you're hosting or guesting, is very, very powerful.
No, it is. It is, Santita. And I think it's the one reason why I love doing legal commentaries, because what I do is I look at a case, I look at the facts of it, and I make a legal commentary. I comment on the evidence, on whether it's presented well, whether this, that, and the other.
But wait, how is this being framed? You're on court
It's being
TV.
framed differently and from a legal standpoint, from my experience in Atlanta and elsewhere, in a certain way. it's being framed that Fonnie Willis just, was stupid. Some people was stupid, made a bad mistake. She did all this kind of stuff, and she may have asked for it because she's a bad mamma jamma, and she walks around with a chip on her shoulder. All those code words.
Okay.
But it's being framed that from a legal standpoint. From a legal standpoint, she has crossed every T and dotted every I. So that's how it's being framed. Even if you notice, those who are very critical of Fonnie, they're critical of her because of the things that she did and that
Her
were
manner.
on display. Right.
Yeah.
Her manner, her this, her that, her walking in. I don't even eat popcorn anymore. I was looking for some popcorn when she red is my color. So the whole thing was just hilarious. But if it weren't for the fact that it was so serious, I would have been rolling on the floor. But my point is that the stakes are as high as they ever were. And again, the reason why I like doing legal commentary, because I'm not telling people how to vote. My job in doing legal commentary is looking at the issues, raising issues from a different perspective, causing people to think about the legal stuff. Don't get mired down in the political stuff. What you do politically, that's what you do. But let's look at the fundamental legal issues, and in this case, the fundamental legal issues, the fundamental standard, the legal standard that this judge under Georgia law had to abide by did not support a disqualification. It may have pained him severely because he had some misgivings about the whole thing, what they said, how they said it, the cultural, there were real cultural dynamics surrounding how Fonnie Willis operates. But what people have to understand is there are cultural dynamics in Fulton County. Hello, she was elected. Did not go. I just find that there's a lot of hypocrisy and people aren't looking at the reality of Fulton County. Fulton County is not the way it used to be, but Fulton County did by and large elect Fonnie Willis. Right. And there are a lot of people, whether they voice it or not, that are exceptionally supportive of her. I was at a meeting, having nothing to do with political, an organization that does nothing politically. They pride themselves on not being involved in any political stuff. They're like, if you want to do that, join this one and that one, but we're not that way. We're strictly social. And they were all getting together, all their respective groups, to send a letter to Fonnie Willis saying, we got you.
Wow.
So, and then these are people who are in Fulton County, not just Black women.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we have to, a lot of people aren't articulating because why? They don't want to be they don't want to be targeted.
Yeah.
So
because when you stand up for someone like that,
right,
you are waving a flag.
You're waving a flag. So I like doing legal commentary because I'm standing up for CK. I'm not saying this or that. I'm calling it the way that I see it. And I look at the legal stuff. That's what I'm trained at. I leave the political pundits to do all that other stuff because they're much better than I. But did we lose Santita?
Yeah, I'm just looking for her. We did.
Okay.
Well, we can keep talking. She'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And I'm going to have to run shortly, but I just wanted
You
to
just got off
that.
a plane. Well, I'm glad you were able to join us and that you were able to bring your perspective, because it's from the legal perspective, you're really breaking it down in terms of the fact that it's not just, and Terry as well as lawyers, it's not just the appearance of impropriety. People can date whoever they want to date. And with the intense hours that they have, quite frankly, you can make a case for, whatever. I'm not going to go there. But the bottom line is, it has nothing to do with the case. It has nothing to do with the case.
And that's what prejudice to the defendants. How are the defendants? That's even
Exactly.
But
wait a minute.
Other part of that,
back good. I was getting ready to take over.
No.
The other part that's there, CK and Santita and everyone else, is that when we were dealing with Fonnie Willis, remember, let's go back to the beginning, right? At the beginning, they said there was no way she was going to be able to do all 19 of these cases at one time, right? All these issues, right? And then what happens? Well, then 4 or 5 of them enter guilty pleas, right? And then the next thing is, well, there's no way she's going to be able to get these cases tried and to move them along. And then all of a sudden we have cases and dates that are being set, and she's meeting all these deadlines. This whole thing with Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade was a way to slow this train down.
Of course, exactly.
She's hitting too hard. She's coming too quick. We got to slow this down. That's what this was all about. I stand on the point that I don't think that there's anything that exists in their relationship that in any way prejudiced any of these defendants. There was no reason to have any of these hearings that the judge had, other than the fact that he's up for a re-election. That's the only reason you would hold these hearings and slow this down. But I think that at every point, they had underestimated what Bonnie Willis could do, and it was just so great to watch her dad on the stand as he ripped into him. It was good to listen to Nathan Wade when he said, "Y'all don't know Bonnie Willis. You don't just want to pay this for her. She's going to do for herself." And they got a chance to finally see it. Dr. Malveaux, when you spoke of Ashley Merchant and the horrible job she did cross-examining her, she wasn't ready for Bonnie. The way that came about, you got to remember, they weren't expecting Bonnie to be in that courtroom. If I'm here, I'm going to testify now. We don't need to have this hearing about whether or not I'm here, I'm ready to testify, let's go. So I don't know that she was.
And Daryl, just at that point, and I don't mean to interrupt, I've never seen a situation where before a witness is called, the witness kind of runs in and sits on the stand.
Yes, right.
Okay, I just have to.
No, that's called CK. That's called time enough.
No.
Time enough for
And she
you.
kept in. I mean, the judge was like, "What kind of?" Because, and again, the judge did what the judge was supposed to do. His courtroom, his evidentiary hearing, he ruled, and I think he got the final decision right.
Well, wait a minute. I was going to ask you, do you think he was fair?
I think I disagreed with some of the things the positions that he took, but I think overall he was okay. And the reason why I say that is he had to, I hate to say this, it's so terrible when you say split the baby. He was going to split the baby.
Yeah.
Because and that's, I think, the problem sometimes when you are elected versus appointed. And I'm just saying that there are dynamics. He felt I believe from his opinion, he was he felt very strongly that there was a mockery being made of something. He didn't like the presence and presentation that Bonnie Willis presented, but he didn't really like the other side's stuff either, wasting his time. So he didn't like either of it, but he felt at the end of the day there was not sufficient evidence under Georgia law to disqualify him. But he wanted to feel all that stuff that he didn't like. He wanted her to understand that's not going to roll in my courtroom. The other thing too is that this is Bonnie Willis. I mean, I don't know how people, if you're in full account, this is how she is. This has been why she's been successful. She didn't just come on up and act like this is how she is as a prosecutor, and she leaves no stones unturned. That's what I think. If I were defending on the other side, I'd be upset too. I'd be very upset because the bottom line is any day of the week, if you're a lawyer, get slapped on the hand, have the judge tell you you've been bad, didn't like what you did, you were too aggressive, you were too this, too that, but you're still in the case because all you have to do to win is to get to a jury on one claim. You don't have to get to them on 100 claims. One claim, one RICO, one claim, and these defendants are going down. So Bonnie's still in the major victory.
Well, CK,
I am
I guess my biggest problem with the whole thing, I think your point is at the end of the day, she prevailed. We've been around the mulberry bush. At the end of the day, she prevailed. But my problem in the context of race, gender, in this country is that he felt compelled to spank her, slap her hand in a way that he didn't do that little Ashley Merchant. He felt compelled to basically, and his language was extremely harsh. Well, I found that in the first part of his decision, he was rather measured. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on TV. So, y'all lawyers can correct me if I'm wrong. But I felt like his language was very measured at the beginning. And it was almost like he'd been extraordinarily careful to be measured. But I think that when he went off on her, it was not measured at all.
Well, he went from being objective to being extremely subjective.
But you know what?
But
Right.
hold on, CK. Let me bring on Attorney O'Neill, and then you can respond. I need to hear from Attorney Sanat. What were you saying? What were you saying, Terry? Because you were nodding your head vigorously in assent to Dr. Malcolm.
Yeah, I just agree with what Dr. Malvo was saying. I thought the second half of his opinion, he did get personal. He did get, well, I just felt like I didn't believe her. He's not, and he said that he didn't actually bring up any countervailing evidence to explain why he thought that she wasn't being truthful. I just think there's a whole dynamic here. But like I said before, I think he's part of it is, and as CK, you said he's looking to be reelected. I think he's also looking to not have to have marshals protecting him for the rest of his life. And you go after a criminal enterprise, which I believe the Trump organization is, and Donald Trump is the head of it. Those are dangerous people. And I think the judge was also throwing a bone, if you will, in the second half to the Trump people to try to mollify them or something.
Let me just say this. You don't have to be a prosecutor. It's bringing back memories of an experience that I had in the private sector when I was in practice with Willie Gary in 2001 or 2. We tried a case against Anheuser-Busch. And we ultimately, we had 2 cases. On the first case, we got a $139 million verdict. And all the judges in the area, this was in Gainesville, where I'm actually sitting right now. This is like the case that I'm involved in this week. The trial will be my 25th or 26th case I've tried in Gainesville. But putting that aside, there was a judge that came in from way out someplace yonder to try the case because our client was Maris Distributing, Roger Maris's family, and they had serviced for 33 years the community, Anheuser-Busch beer. All right. So in that case, we tried that case for 97 days. 97. Do you know what a Black woman's hair looks like 97 days? I digress. 97 days, we tried that case. And the judge was very biased, openly biased against us. Against, and Willie and I were the only 2 African Americans, on the trial team. But, our clients, of course, the Roger Maris family, their white family, and there were, it was really a very diverse group. But, Willie was the lead trial lawyer, bottom line. And the judge, we found out that there were 16 private investigators that were hired by the Anheuser-Busch team to go through our trash. Wow. We reported to the judge, and we were all penalized for that. We had a special master's process that was going on simultaneous to the trial. So that meant while we were in trial, we were also involved in a separate process to determine what was what and who was what. At the end of the day, the judge sent all of our team to the bar, to the Florida bar. None of the other team that had hired 16 private investigators to go through our trash.
Yeah.
Okay. And our verdict, he refused to publish the press was all in the courtroom, and that's why everybody knew. He refused to allow the clerk to publish the verdict, and he reduced it on the spot. Okay. We ultimately prevailed. Didn't matter. But my point
is the system of the disparity of our justice system and how they make
justice system. And let me tell you, they wanted to take Willie Gary out. They did not succeed because we had another case against Anheuser-Busch that we tried 2 years later. But for 2 years, and I'll never forget, I became pregnant with my first son during that 2-year period. For 2 years, we were defendants, and the Florida bar was a plaintiff against all 4 of the lawyers on our trial team. And we prevailed, and there's a scathing opinion that is somewhere in Florida, I've got a copy of it, against the Florida bar for allowing itself to be manipulated by Anheuser-Busch. Why do I raise that? I was not, first of all, I was the most junior. I was the only woman that was on either of the trial teams. That's number one. I was maybe I was a 20-year attorney, but certainly that was quite some time ago. And who they wanted was Willie, but they will take out every single person in the process. And when
it's like a bowling alley.
You can do it. Just take out everybody. Because one thing they understood, there would be no second case in the same way if they took our trial team out. You take Willie out, you take out the whole thing. And they were very meticulous, very methodical. And if we hadn't had a referee who handed them their head on a platter, including the Florida bar for allowing itself to be manipulated, the outcome could have been different. Why do I raise that? You don't have to be a prosecutor, a Black district attorney, a Black woman district attorney to be subject to that type of scrutiny and horror. Horror, because all of that was in the Florida Bar Journals, the Weekly. It was a huge case. At the end, we were more than vindicated. It was magnificent, but that was 2 years of hell. And the only thing that I was concerned about, me personally, because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, was talking to my mother. You can appreciate this, Santita. My mother. I wasn't concerned about all that other stuff, colleagues being critical, whatever, because we were high flying and doing what no other lawyers were doing, black or white. So I wasn't concerned about the criticism from any peers, but I was concerned about my mother. And she asked me one question. She said, CK, did you do anything wrong? I said, no. She said, okay, well then just fight it. And that was it and the end of it. And so my point is that these things do happen in high stakes litigation, whether it's in the civil side or the criminal side. It's much more accentuated because you could lose life or liberty. I use that example about me. I mean, sometimes you have to look at your own situation and use it as a teaching tool. I talk and teach about professionalism and ethics, having your back up against the wall when the people who govern how you practice and if you can practice are suing you. I teach that all the time because I want people to know you go into high stakes, you got to understand what could happen.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and it comes with the territory.
It does.
And okay. And
but it ain't
easy.
It's not good.
It's not easy, but you know what? If you're not willing to, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Reverend says, if you don't run, you're guaranteed to lose. But if you do run, you just might win.
Yeah, right.
So come on, you got to be willing to take, and you have to get, when you're in the arena, you're going to take hits. This is what power is.
But you know, Santita, just as a practicing lawyer on the private sector, never having worked in the public sector, I never expected in my career. I just thought, just work hard, do the right thing. I never expected. I mean, I'm not in the public domain. Don't ever want to be. And so I just thought, if I just stay in my lane, what's comfortable with me, I should not have these kinds of issues. And that would be negative. That would be negative.
No.
If you take on, and if you're involved with complex litigation where there's money on the line, it just is going to be.
Whenever you're dealing with power,
yeah,
this is the way this works. I have 5 minutes left, so I have less than a minute for everybody. Wow, what a conversation. I mean, because this is the kind of analysis of the Fonnie Willis case that I was anxious to hear, because, I heard different kind of analysis through corporate media. And I think you all touched upon the issues of gender, race, racism, subjectivity, because everyone thinks that the law is supposed to be objective. It is not. And you touched upon everything. So if you could, everyone, 30 seconds, please give me your closing thoughts. Attorney Sanat?
I guess I would say the most important thing that Attorney O'Neill actually brought up that I thought was interesting was the fact that he never made an actual finding that there was credibility issue. He only implied that there was. And one of the things a judge is supposed to do is determine whether or not a witness is credible. And in the decision, he never found her incredible, meaning he never said, you're unbelievable, and this is my decision. He just said some rhetoric that ultimately may be used against her to appeal to his base. And I think, unfortunately, this is where we are. If we appoint the judges, we're going to be in a situation where we have United States Supreme Court justices being appointed by a conservative group of people. But if we allow people to be voted on, sometimes you're not going to get the fairness that you need. And I think moving forward, we really do need to consider, how do we select our judiciary? We know how we select our legislator. We know how we select the executive. But right now, I think how we select our judges is going to have to be something that we as American people are truly going to have to consider. Because if you're not going to find make a finding of incredibility, then you shouldn't mention it at all.
Well, it's not just the how, it's the who, because most of us don't even know who's running. We just
judge,
listen, we don't even think about 30 seconds, really, everybody. 30 seconds, Attorney Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Santita. Let me tell you, Fonnie Willis, I am so impressed and proud of Fonnie Willis. And I'm going to tell you, I'm the only person I'm more impressed and proud of than Fonnie Willis were the people that elected her. She's doing precisely what she was elected to do. And I say this, I'll say it, and I'll close with it again. You show me a lion without scars, and I'll show you an untested leader. She's getting her scars. She's fighting the fight. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing and what she was elected to do.
I like it. Attorney Terry O'Neill.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by Fonnie Willis. I'm very grateful to her for having the courage to bring this lawsuit, to bring this criminal charge against a man who I believe is the head of a criminal enterprise. And there's very few people who have the courage to go up against him. So I'm thrilled that she has won this round.
Dr. Julianne Malveaux.
I'm excited about the future of this case. I think, first of all, I'm like the others, impressed with Fonnie Willis, anxious to see who will be the prosecutor absent Nathan Wade, hoping that'll be someone on the team for continuity's sake. But I'm excited about this case has more potential than any of the other cases against that man. Really has more potential to really put him behind bars. First, because it's a state case. So even if he is elected president of the United States, which we hope doesn't happen, even if that does happen, the state charges do not go away. They may be delayed, but they won't be denied. And this case also really does speak to the tentacles that this man has in our political system. So I'm just excited to see it move forward. And Santita, thank you for setting up a very scintillating conversation with my friends and colleagues.
Boy, you all are a lot. CK Hoffler, 30 seconds, and we're out. I want to remind everyone, WOLDC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Daryl Jones and attorney Barbara Arnwine. You're on WPFW. Dr. Malveaux, when can we see you, hear your show?
Monday mornings at 9 a.m. In fact, tomorrow I'll be talking about Haiti with Dr. Ron Daniels, and also talking about Gwen McKinney, our Maven PR person, who's put together 10 Black women, or 11, I think, who deserve to be lifted up during Black History Month. So WPFWFM.org.
And WAOK every Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. CK Hoffler?
Yep, 11 Eastern Standard Time. Law and Legal with CK Hoffler. All I will say, Santita, is stay tuned and remain in prayer for Fonnie Willis and her family.
Amen, everybody. And you know what? Keep fighting the good fight. You might not win every battle, but if you stay in the fight, you will win the war. Just hold on. Just hold on, everybody. And look, I'm just excited that we were able to have this conversation today. Thank you, AM 950 Radio, for letting us go forward and really tease all of this out. What a brilliant panel. I love you all. God bless you. Have a wonderful one, everybody. And let us move into this Easter week prayerfully and lovingly, everyone. God bless you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right.